support the Raise the Rate campaign because I was living on New Start for 11 years. I struggled to get work. I did a lot of training and education to try and advance my prospects, but it came down to the fact that at the time my autism was undiagnosed. I was battling with my mental health issues because I also have bipolar. I was diagnosed with bipolar when I was 22, but my autism wasn't diagnosed until 36. At 35 I was diagnosed with ADHD. I believe I have all three of these diagnoses, and it made it very hard to get work. I studied, but I really wanted full-time paid work at the time, and it was an uphill battle because I was undiagnosed. And in 2013 I got on disability support pension for my bipolar. The other two conditions hadn't been diagnosed at that stage, but being on disability support pension set me free to do a lot of community work that I otherwise wouldn't be able to do. I run a bipolar support group in the Blue Mountains that I really love. I've been involved with the Raise the Rate campaign. I've been trying to help people put their submissions into the Productivity Commission, and also helped people write submissions into the Senate inquiries that I think are relevant to people with lived experience of mental illness. It's particularly hard living on New Start because it is such a restricted income, and sometimes that is a barrier to even getting a diagnosis for some people because they can't afford to go see a psychiatrist, they can't afford to go see people who specialise in diagnosing autism, but also there's lots of people out there with lots of mental health issues or that sort of thing that are undiagnosed because they don't have the insight to know that there's anything wrong with them, and that may mean living in poverty for a very long time. I hate the phrase the best cure for welfare is a job, when sometimes a job that is beyond our capability at that time, and that there are other important ways to engage with the community, such as volunteer work, such as parenting, and we shouldn't be judged only on our economic worth. Our worth is intrinsic because we are human beings. We have intrinsic worth. So do animals, but it's just different. I think we want to be in a society where we value people's contributions that take a variety of roles. Poverty has a huge link to people committing suicide, and I want to live in Australia where people feel empowered to live the best life they can live, and often if they have mental health difficulties, with or without symptoms of their mental illness. I want to live in a society where everybody has enough food to eat, and their value is intrinsic to who they are. It is not based on what their economic output is. I think I contribute to society in the volunteer work that I do, in the friendships and communities that I'm a part of, and I think that all of that is worthwhile. And if we're serious as a country about preventing suicide, one of the things we've got to tackle most is poverty. And poverty can be prevented. Raising the weight is one way to prevent poverty. People's intrinsic worth should not be placed on what economic output they are. A person is valuable because of who they are, and we should nurture that in a society. Parents or volunteers or friends, even that is a worthwhile part of society and a social role that needs to be nurtured and cared for. I have friends who've worked in so many jobs where they come home and they're unhappy because they haven't contributed to society. I had a friend whose job was to partly deny people their insurance claims, and she felt like that wasn't really as contributing as, say, working in a different role or the roles that she has outside that. She's one of my dearest friends, and without her I would have been admitted to the psych ward this year. I don't care what politicians think about me. I care what actions they take and the effects that has on my lives. on the lives of me and my communities. The communities include people with mental health issues, people with disabilities, my geographic community. There's lots of problems with the Blacktown Council area in the fact that there are not enough jobs, and the suicide, and there's a high suicide rate, but also there's also a huge poverty rate, because unemployment is been about 20% for young people over the last 20 years. It's not changing. I guess we should be hopeful that it doesn't get higher, but it hasn't actually improved any during the last 20 years. Don't judge people, try to understand their stories. We're all different, we all have something that we add to the society, and I think it's cruel to assume that the only benefits to society anyone has is their economic input into society. And also that raising the rate will be really good for lower socioeconomic communities like Blacktown Council area, but also regional and rural areas. And that's important to me because I want to live in a country where people aren't committing suicide.